The first day of the elimination stage of the major has just concluded. We are now in the thick of it. All teams are present. The top teams in the world are now battling for their spot in the arena in Copenhagen. And boy, the sparks were flying left and right. We saw some of the best games played so far in the tournament today, which means we have quite a lot to go over. But before we get started, I want to take a minute to recognize something bigger than the game of Counter-Strike. Sticko tweeted out this morning that he'll be donating 20% of his sticker revenue as part of his own initiative to bring awareness to mental health issues within esports specifically. Late last year, the esports industry was stunned when a young Valorant pro named Twistin unfortunately passed away due to his issues with mental health. And the Counter-Strike community specifically was hit directly early this year when a young pro named Cynic also took his own life. These players were struggling with things that they felt were outside of their control, and unfortunately they weren't able to get the help they needed. Which is why it's so important to be aware of the issues with mental health and how many of us neglect to take care of ourselves in that regard. Just like taking care of yourself physically by eating better or getting exercise, it's important to maintain your mental well-being as well, as that can have such an overwhelming control on our day-to-day lives. If you're out there and you're struggling, there are resources out there to help you, whether it's reaching out to the friends near you or reaching out to services like the Twistin Foundation, which was set up by his family in the wake of his passing. I know it can be tough, but remember, even at the darkest moments, you're never truly alone, and things can get better. That's why Sticko is donating 20% of his sticker revenue, 10% to the family of Snake directly, and 10% to the Twistin Foundation to help people improve themselves when they're in these difficult situations. I would strongly urge you to open up Twitter and bump this tweet so it can reach as many people as possible. I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. And if you're able to, consider a donation to the Twistin Foundation while you're there. It helps out more than you realize. Anyways, I felt it important to highlight that, as whatever small platform I have may be able to help contribute as well. Normally this is where I would plug my own personal social medias and ask you guys to support me directly, but I would much prefer you to do something bigger than just my small YouTube channel and help out what Sticko is trying to do directly instead. Anyways, that out of the way, I know it's a heavy topic to open the video, but I felt it important to highlight it. Let's get on with the major recap. Alright, so we had 16 best of ones today, which means there's quite a lot to go over, so we're going to do this speed style. We'll linger on some of the bigger matches as we go through, but we're going to try and get through this as quick as we can. In the opening match of the elimination stage, we saw Navi take on the Mongolz on Mirage, and going into this, I did not have much confidence in the Mongolz. I thought they were going to be kind of quietly exiting the elimination stage, as I feel the overall caliber of the competition is just above their pay grade. But in this opening map, they put up quite a good fight. Ended up being a 13-10 scoreline with Navi taking the win. In terms of highlights, I think if you're a Navi fan, JL, Bit, and Wonderful getting out to great fragging starts is a really good sign. Alexi B's playbook is looking deep and nice as ever. And all around, they just consistently use their map control to their advantage. On the CT side, they gave the Mongolz no openings to take too much. And on the T side, their A and B executes looked very solid. And while the first half for the Mongolz didn't look the best, on the second half, I think they looked much more comfortable on the CT side. Blitz and Mazzino continue to be great individually, and I think this team has a lot of potential. They just need a little more time. Moving on, we have Mouz versus Ecstatic on Overpass. And going into this, I think these teams were very evenly matched, with Ecstatic having great form coming out of the opening stage. But looking at this Mouz lineup, I think I might be underrating them quite a bit, because they came out much better than I expected them to. The combination of Torzi, Zershin, and Brolin is looking like a very lethal fragging core. Brolin led the server with 21 kills, tying Patty over on the Ecstatic side, and this map went the distance. It was down to the very last rounds, with Brolin coming up with a huge 1v2 clutch to tie it 11-11, allowing Mouz to take the economic advantage and then winning the game 13-11. Great map from both teams, and I expect them to do well going into the next few days. And for our first quote-unquote upset of the day, we had Imperial versus Virtus Pro on Inferno. Now, I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna find through these next couple of days that I am the biggest Virtus Pro hater on the planet, because I don't like this team at all. I don't think it's structured well, I don't think the star power is there, I think Jaime as IGL and Opper is a bad combination. There is nothing about Virtus Pro that I find appealing, and there are a lot of people who have Virtus Pro going through to the playoffs, and some even as their 3-0 teams, and I find that laughable. And we saw it here, they lost 13-6 on Inferno to Imperial, and it didn't look close. Imperial were in control of this game the entire time. No way Vinny, Phelps, getting frags as they needed. No way having a huge pop-off game. Insane rounds from him. Decenti coming up clutch when he needed it with a huge 1v3 late in the game. I don't know what time it is, but it certainly isn't game time. Moving on. And look out, we have an early contender for potential fraud watch here. Vitality against Eternal Fire. Rip my pick'ems, because I thought for sure Vitality were going to come out, and if they took the first map, they were going to be one of the 3-0 teams. I wanted to see the ZywOo Revenge Tour, because they've been off to a bad start this year, and apparently I was smoking crack, because this team just does not look good. We'll talk about it more later, but ZywOo is not showing the Jesus form that we expect from him. He's not this unstoppable dominant player, and frankly they look vulnerable everywhere else, because behind ZywOo, I don't really see this team having enough fragging. And then Eternal Fire, this was the usual formula. Zontares, Wakadia, Woxic even had a good game but a bad start. They had the frags to their advantage, they got the clutches when they needed, they had the better X factor than Vitality, they wanted it more. And that made the difference. 13-10, Eternal Fire take the win. Oh, I'm sorry guys. Guys, do you hear that? Do you hear that in the distance? I don't know what that, I don't know what that is. What's the sound? Is that the sound of freedom ringing? Because America is here at the major, baby! Complexity on the back of a bald eagle with a machine gun, fly into Vertigo against Pain, and take a swift victory, 13-9. Elige, the hero we need, the bald master, dropping 18 kills alongside Grim, equally bald and equally skilled in this game. Jokes and the lack of kilometers aside, I think Complexity played a very sound game on Vertigo, and this is why I picked Pain as one of my potential 0-3 teams. I think they're good in the sense that Big Azera and Nisim are very good, but the rest of the team just doesn't compete. I don't think this team has enough star power and not a deep enough playbook. Moving on to the death of my pick'ems, i.e. my other 3-0 team potentially, FaZe Clan versus Heroic on Ancient. And I don't know why the gods hate me on this one, but FaZe came out just looking limp, not very good. They let Heroic jump out to an early T-side lead. They were able to bring it back and end the half 7-5. But we swapped to the T-side, and FaZe just did not look good on this T-side, bizarrely. They just looked inconsistent, sloppy. They let Heroic take too much control, and Heroic just ended up winning this game straight up. They were the better team here. Nikados went insane with 20 kills, 1.21 rating. And you look over at the FaZe side, and it's okay. You know, 16, it was a very even spread of frags amongst the FaZe clan, but there was no pop-off, there was no insane play. And just let the door open for frankly a very hot Heroic team, who win it 13-10. And thankfully for the last two games of the first half of the day, we leave the wacky zone behind and get some expected results. G2, Furia, on Inferno, G2 came out and did what they had to do, 13-3. Furia were just never in this, they couldn't keep up with the fragging or the map control. Modesty went monster mode with the op, Nico not that far behind. This was G2 on all cylinders, just cooking. And for the final game of the first half of the day, why do I hear boss music? Oh, it's because Spirit are playing Cloud9. This went to Ancient, 13-7, Spirit take the win, and despite it being 13-7, Spirit were in full control of this game. Shiro, Donk, Zontix, they were just playing with their food, man. They were by far the better team, just insane performances individually. Donk continues to just look like Jesus Christ behind the fucking monitor. I don't know how this kid is so good at the game, despite being 17. I should have picked this team for my 3-0. I thought maybe they would have first stage jitters just because they're so new, but no, they're the truth. Donk is the truth. All praise Donk, he is our overlord. And let's move on to the second half of the day. After a smoke break and a reseeding, we have Vitality taking on Mongolz in the first BO1 on the back half of the day. And here, Vitality, I think they looked a lot better. Admittedly, Mongolz a much worse team than Eternal Fire. But we go to Nuke, and Vitality take care of business, 13-9. However, I will say, again, kind of a sloppy game. Mongolz were in this way more than they should be, and again, ZywOo, he's just not quite at that godlike form. And if you're a Vitality fan and you're seeing them have to rely on Mezzy, Spinks, and Flames to get through this game, you're sweating, because that's not the god killer Vitality. But they took care of the job at the end of the day. Mongolz drop 0-2, they advance 1. And continuing the streak of frankly banger games on Vertigo, we get Mouz versus Eternal Fire. This one went every single round, but I will say at the end of the day, the fragging from Mouz just seemed a little bit better. You had Jimfat and Zershin leading the way with 23 and 21 respectively, and no one on Eternal Fire could match that. And once again, I have to point this out, a bad game from Woxic when they really needed him to show up. But again, they were in it till the very end. Once we got to the second half, there was a point at the end where Eternal Fire ran off 4 straight rounds on the CT side to bring it 12-11 with the potential to push it to overtime. but just fell short at the end. But again, this Mouz team looking really good. They advanced 2-0. Eternal Fire drops 1-1, no big deal. Now again, despite my burning hatred of Virtus Pro as a team, they should have won this game. They played Pain Gaming, this was the expected outcome. They beat Pain 13-9, but I have to point out, once again, this should not have been as close as it was. And I'll put some of this being the fact that it was an Inferno game, and the AWP is just not a strong weapon on Inferno. But again, this team is built around Jame, so if you're playing a not very strong AWP map, I feel like that's kind of just a mistake in the pick ban. Anyways, doesn't matter, they do what they need to do. Pain drops to the 0-2, Virtus Pro goes up to the 1-1, fair play. And then wee woo, banger alert, we have a contender for best map of the major so far, Complexity and Heroic Duel to the Death on Vertigo. And this game, you need to go watch this game. This game was absolutely killer. It goes to 3 overtimes. Complexity clutch it out, 19-17. Elige leads the way. America into the future with 37 frags across the map. He was God mode when this team needed him most. Grim, Halzerk, clutching when he needed it. JT looking good in the back. Floppy on the IGO, he had impact kills when he needed it. This was Complexity playing their game. And listen, it's a scrappy style, it's a puggy style, it's very North American Counter-Strike. They're not going to blow a ton of teams out, but they're going to take you to the very edge every single game. I mean, in the double overtime, there was a play by Elige where he got a triple spray down full blind on the A site. That might be one of the best spray clips in the history of Counter-Strike. It's that good. And then Heroic, they played just as well. They would get hit in the mouth by Complexity and then just fire back the next round. This game was back and forth to the very end, and I have nothing else to say. This game could have been won by either team. It was incredible. It was the best map of the day. Complexity go up 2-0. The American hope is alive, and everyone doubted this fucking team, but they're now looking to go 3-0 and advance to the playoffs, despite everyone not thinking they're going to do anything in this tournament. From the heights of what competitive Counter-Strike can offer, we head to an absolute blowout. Cloud9 smack Ecstatic in the face 13-3. After their very close duel on day 1 of the opening stage, Cloud9 said, none of that, we're on overpass, we're just going to move on, you guys aren't going to be able to stop us. We know you're on a hot streak, but that's just, we're going to have none of that. This was just a Cloud9 pounding. Perfecto, Exile, Hobbit, just could not be stopped. Ecstatic, they drop to the 1-1, Cloud9 goes to the 2-0. No real fault of Ecstatic, I think they're still going to do well in the following games. We then head to Nuke, where Navi and G2 would battle it out again to the very wire. This would see Navi win 13-11, and this game really would come down to the very last couple of rounds, because G2 got to 11 points on the CT side, they looked in complete control, and then Navi just locked it in with superior T-side strategy and calling to win 5 straight and take the map out of G2's hands when it looked like they were in full control. And G2 had everything going in this game. Mozzie, Hunter, and Nico all playing well. Nico not playing to his superstar level, but his ability to play outside on CT is unmatched, which kept him in the game. Meanwhile, on Navi, you had everything you could possibly ask for here. Wonderful and JL leading the charge, Perfecto being an absolute clutch god. Their CT side was cheeky, using shotguns and tasers to high effectiveness. This team, I think, looks really, really good right now. I love the calling from Alexi being the fact that he has full control of this lineup now. Navi are looking like a threat. G2, they're looking good. They're looking better than I thought they would. And if Nico can come online with that incredible form we know he can, they'll be a threat later in the bracket. And our last 2 games of the day are more like formalities. Faze versus Furia on Ancient. And despite Faze utterly disappointing in the opening game of the day, I don't think there was any chance in hell they were going to let Furia have a shot in this game. And it shows. We get a 13-7 scoreline. Furia aren't very competitive. They pretty much get all of their rounds in the first half, and then when we move to the T side for Faze, they dominate, winning 7 of the 8 remaining rounds to close out the map. Again, Brokey and Robs were insane. Robs had this insane ace clutch on the T side that is worth you watching. Really unreal plays from Robs in the clutch. Meanwhile, K Serrato was doing great alongside Art. Fallen was okay as well, but they really just didn't have the frags or the strats to keep up with Faze on Ancient. And for the last game of the day, we had Spirit versus Imperial on Mirage. And for my highly detailed, sophisticated analysis of Counter-Strike at the highest level, the ruminations of the philosophical mind, and analyzing deep on a core level what it means to play Counter-Strike, the philosophical quandaries that contemplate humanity and what it means to be an athlete, all of that to say that Donk happened. This was a Donk map. Donk did Donk things, Spirit absolutely stomped Imperial 13-2, and that's it. That's all I got to say. Donk. Thus concludes the proceedings for the opening day of the elimination stage. On screen are your schedules for tomorrow. Firstly, in the best of ones, we have Heroic versus Virtus Pro, and then Imperial versus Vitality on the B stream. I think Heroic should beat Virtus Pro handily. Again, I'm VP's biggest hater. I'm not going to bet on them to win. Heroic are on fire, and they should win this easily. Imperial versus Vitality. Once again, if Vitality bring the form we know they can, this should be an easy win, but I do think that they're asleep at the wheel, and that means Imperial could steal a win right from underneath them. And then, for our first set of best of threes in the elimination stage, we have Pain Gaming versus the Mongolz in the 0-2 matchup to stay alive. Honestly, I think this is a pretty even matchup. I think both teams are relying on their 2-star players to carry them through, but when I rate the stars equally, I think Big Azera is the biggest talent in this matchup, so I'll give Pain Gaming the edge to win versus the Mongolz. And for our other elimination match, we have Ecstatic versus Furia, again the 0-2 teams battling it out. And here, I think Ecstatic should win comfortably. They've been the better team in this tournament, and I don't think Furia are going to compete in the best of 3 against them. I think Ecstatic should win this. And over on the main stream, started off with the best of ones, we have G2 versus Cloud9, and this should be a very even set here. I think Cloud9 have a bit more team cohesion, but if G2 brings the top form they can, if Nico comes online, they could very well win this. I think this could be very map dependent, and I'm going to lean Cloud9 because I think they're better right now in the tournament so far. And then for a true toss-up, we have Eternal Fire versus Faze. If Faze struggles to open up the day like they did today, I think Eternal Fire could take it, but I think Woxic being as missing as he has been at this event is a difference maker, which will allow them to not be able to beat Faze Clan. So I will take Faze to win. And then for the 2-0 matches to decide who advances to the playoffs, we have Mouz versus Complexity, and then Team Spirit versus Navi. And I'm going to be honest, I think Complexity getting Mouz is a huge W, because I don't think Complexity would beat Team Spirit or Navi, but against Mouz, they have a shot. I'm going to go full-on bias here. I'm going to stand on my American soapbox. I'm going to believe in the bald eagle himself, Elige, and Complexity are going to beat Mouz in 3 maps, and North America is going to take the first playoff spot in the majors, even though no one would have expected them to. And then Team Spirit versus Navi has potential to be the best match in the tournament so far by a mile. I think Team Spirit will win, but I think Navi are going to give them trouble, and they're going to make them work for it. But if Donk is going to donk, then Navi really aren't going to be able to keep up. Whew. Oh my god, 16 best ones, dude, what a long day, but we got it done. America is on top, and that's all that matters. Eagle noises, machine guns, what the fuck is a kilometer. Make sure you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.